Valerie, wait, please let me explain. It is not what it looks like.
I saw you making out with my sister. There is nothing left for you to explain.
Come on, kids. We are going for a little drive.
In a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas, there are streets named after old presidents, small houses with painted fences, front porches lined with flower pots, and families who water their plants every morning, even when the summer heat makes every drop feel expensive. It is the kind of neighborhood where people know each other by name, where stories travel from driveway to driveway without anyone officially telling them, where the smell of Sunday barbecue can drift 3 blocks away, and where children still ride bikes outside until dusk because their mothers are watching from behind the windows. That was where Valerie Bennett lived, in a rented 3-bedroom house with a small front yard and a purple bougainvillea climbing along the fence. A house that did not belong to her, but that she cared for as if it did. Because somewhere deep inside, with the quiet certainty people sometimes carry without knowing who placed it there, she knew that one day she would have a home of her own. Valerie was 38 years old and had been married to Marcus Bennett for 9 years. They had 2 children, 7-year-old Ethan and 5-year-old Lily. Valerie worked as a math teacher at a middle school near downtown. Her morning shift began at 7 and ended at 2, and she loved her job with the steady satisfaction of someone who did not need applause to know she was good at what she did. She especially liked the difficult students, the ones who arrived already convinced that math was not made for them. Because Valerie had a rare kind of patience. She could explain the same problem 10 different ways until one version finally landed, until a child's face changed, until fear turned into understanding. Marcus worked at an advertising agency in the city. He was creative, talkative, the kind of man who filled a room the moment he stepped into it. Their love story had started fast, with intensity and heat, the kind of beginning that, when you are around 30, feels exactly like the life you thought you were supposed to find. 9 years later, that intensity had settled into something calmer, more ordinary, more daily, and Valerie believed that was better. Because real life is not built in fireworks. It is built in school lunches, paid bills, clean sheets, grocery lists, tired kisses, and children sleeping safely in the next room. They did not have extra money, but they had enough. And inside that little house with the purple bougainvillea, Valerie valued one thing more than anything else: peace. The feeling that everything was where it belonged. The feeling that tomorrow would look a little like today. They had spent 9 years building that feeling. Then Rachel arrived. Rachel was Valerie's younger sister, 4 years younger, and the two of them had grown up together in the same modest family house, sharing a bedroom, fighting over the bathroom mirror, covering for each other when one came home late, whispering secrets after the lights went out. Rachel had moved to Chicago when she was 23 to study graphic design, then stayed there after finding work, and later after falling into a relationship that lasted 6 years and ended badly. When Rachel called Valerie and said she needed to leave Chicago, that she could not breathe in that city anymore, not with every street and apartment and coffee shop holding a memory she wanted to forget, and asked if she could stay in Austin for a while until she recovered and found work, Valerie did not hesitate. Rachel was her sister, the person who knew her teenage secrets, the person who had sat in the front row at her wedding and cried before anyone else. Marcus said yes too, with the easy kindness of a husband who wanted to be good to his wife's family because he loved his wife. Rachel arrived on a Saturday in July with 2 suitcases, a backpack, and eyes still red from the breakup. She brought a cake from a bakery she had stopped at on the road and hugged the children, who had not seen her in 2 years but loved her immediately, in the effortless way children love the people their mother loves. Valerie and Marcus gave her the spare room. They told her to use the kitchen, the washer, the bathroom, the whole house, anything she needed. Valerie lent her money during the first weeks while Rachel looked for work. She introduced her to friends, explained the bus routes, took her to the grocery store that first Sunday so she would know where to buy what she needed. Valerie did all of it naturally, the way people help when someone they love is in trouble, without keeping a list, without expecting gratitude, without imagining that kindness could one day become the door through which pain entered her life. After 6 weeks, Rachel found a job at a small design firm downtown. Little by little, she began going out, meeting people, and recovering the brightness that disappears after a long relationship ends badly. The children adored her with the devotion nieces and nephews often give to a young aunt who knows how to play and does not scold. Ethan asked her to teach him how to draw. Lily asked her to braid her hair. Rachel did both without complaining. Everything seemed fine. What Valerie did not see, or maybe what she did see but was not ready to name, were the small things that began shifting inside the house. The kind of changes that become dangerous because nobody says them out loud. Marcus started coming home earlier on the afternoons, when Valerie had meetings after school and Rachel was alone. A conversation in the kitchen stopped too suddenly when Valerie walked in on a Tuesday evening. Once, during dinner, Valerie noticed a look pass between Marcus and Rachel. Just one look, quick enough to deny, but sharp enough to lodge itself inside her. In that hidden place where people store the things they are not ready to call real, because naming them gives them a body. Valerie told herself she was imagining things. She told herself exhaustion could twist the mind. She told herself she had been married to Marcus for 9 years and knew him. She told herself Rachel was her sister, the person she had trusted most in the world. So she continued. She watered the bougainvillea in the mornings. She prepared breakfast. She arrived at school on time. She explained equations to students who said they would never understand math. She kept moving through life as if routine itself could protect her, until the night she came home early because a meeting had been cancelled. That night, there was no second of doubt, no confusion, no possibility of misunderstanding, no need for anyone to explain what she was seeing. There are moments in life when the truth does not arrive slowly. It enters like a blade, cold, clean, and impossible to argue with. Valerie saw what she saw, and in that same second, the most important decision of her life formed inside her. She did not scream. She did not cry yet. She did not throw anything. She moved with the precise calm of a woman who understood that the moment did not allow mistakes. She went to her children's bedroom, dressed Ethan and Lily without fully waking them, using that quiet, practical gentleness mothers have when they know how to do everything without making noise. She carried them to the car, settled them into the back seat, fastened their seat belts, checked them twice, and closed the doors. Marcus followed her through the house, talking, pleading, repeating her name, saying words that did not reach her anymore because she had already made her decision, and his voice no longer belonged in the space where her future was being built. She drove 15 minutes to Claire's house. Claire had been her friend since high school, the kind of friend who does not need a full explanation because she knew you before marriage, before children, before life gave you a face you had to learn how to carry. Claire opened the door, saw Valerie's expression, and did not ask a single question. She simply stepped aside and said, "Stay as many nights as you need." That night, after the children fell asleep again in Claire's bed, Valerie sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea that went cold without her drinking it. She thought about what she had. She had her job. She had a salary that was not large, but was hers, and arrived every 2 weeks. She had Ethan and Lily, safe and healthy. She had Claire. And she had something else, something people do not always name, but that becomes the most important thing when life breaks open: clarity. She knew exactly what had happened. She knew exactly what she had to do, and she knew exactly what she would not allow to happen. She would not stay and wait for Marcus to find the right words. There were no right words for that. She would not call Rachel that night. She would not call her mother yet, because her mother would cry, and Valerie needed not to cry yet. She would sleep, and the next day she would begin. The days that followed were the hardest of her life, not in the dramatic, cinematic way pain appears in movies, but in the dull, constant way real pain behaves. It does not always crash in waves. Sometimes it is just there. It is there when you open your eyes in the morning. There, when you make breakfast. There, when you write equations on a whiteboard and force your voice to stay steady so your students do not hear the wound inside it. Marcus called several times. Valerie answered once. She told him calmly to find a lawyer, because she would be doing the same, and then she hung up. Rachel sent messages. Valerie read them completely and did not respond. Her mother called when she found out and cried heavily. She said things about Rachel that Valerie never repeated afterward. Valerie listened, told her she was okay, told her the children were okay, told her she needed time to put things in order. But what Valerie truly needed was not time, it was space. Space to think without everyone else placing their emotions on top of hers. Within 2 weeks, she found an apartment, 2 bedrooms, in a quiet neighborhood 10 minutes from the middle school, with an open kitchen, a window facing the courtyard, a small balcony looking out onto the street, and a bathroom for each bedroom. It was not the house with the purple bougainvillea. It was better. It was the first place that would be completely hers. Ethan asked about his father in those first days with the quiet insistence of a child who needs to understand something before he can move through it. One afternoon, Valerie sat with him at the kitchen table and explained what had happened in words a 7-year-old could receive without being destroyed by them. She told him that Mom and Dad had decided to live in separate homes. She told him that it did not mean either of them loved him or Lily less. She told him they would always be his parents, and that part would never change. Ethan processed it in silence, with the seriousness that had marked him since he was very small, the seriousness of children who think for a long time before speaking. Then he asked if he could still go to soccer practice on Saturdays. Valerie told him yes. Lily did not ask about her father yet. Lily asked if she could bring her pink blanket and her colored pencils to the new apartment. Valerie told her yes to both, then held her for a long moment without rushing, letting the little girl pull away only when she was ready. The divorce took 6 months to become official. It was orderly, without long battles, without scenes at the courthouse. Valerie entered the process with everything thought through, and Marcus, somewhere deep down, knew he had nothing to defend. Custody of the children stayed with Valerie during the week. Marcus saw them on weekends. Ethan and Lily adapted with that resilience children often find when they have a mother who does not fall apart in front of them, a mother who saves for later what must be saved and stands upright during the day because her children still need breakfast, homework, socks, clean clothes, answers, and a sense that the world has not ended. The conversation with Rachel was different and harder in a way Valerie had not expected, because she thought she was ready for it and discovered she was not completely. One afternoon, Rachel showed up outside the middle school, standing by the parking lot gate, waiting. Valerie saw her from a distance and did not slow down, did not speed up, just kept walking until she stood in front of her. Rachel's eyes were red. She said she needed forgiveness, that not a single day had passed since that night without thinking about what she had done, that there was no explanation that could make it acceptable because nothing could. Valerie listened to every word without interrupting. Then she said, "I already forgave you, but forgiving you does not mean going back to what we were. That place does not exist anymore." Rachel tried to speak again. Valerie stopped her gently. "Take care of yourself, Rachel," and walked inside. That was the hardest part of everything. Not Marcus, not the divorce, not the months when money was tight and Valerie sat at the kitchen table until midnight doing calculations. The hardest part was learning how to live without the sister who had been her person for almost 40 years. That absence had a very specific shape, one that did not resemble any other kind of loss. It did not disappear quickly. Maybe it never disappeared completely, but Valerie learned how to carry it without letting it stop her from moving forward, and that was enough. She continued teaching at the middle school. She remained the teacher the difficult students looked for, the one who arrived early, stayed late when necessary, remembered every student's name and even their mother's names. The principal, a woman who had spent 20 years in education, and recognized real dedication when she saw it, had been observing Valerie for a long time. When the position of academic coordinator opened, she did not hesitate. Valerie was the first choice. Valerie accepted without hesitation. The new role meant more responsibility and a better salary. It also meant something more important: the chance to change things she had always wanted to change. How struggling students were supported, how young teachers were guided, how a school could become a place that did not give up on children too quickly. Valerie had ideas she had carried for years. Now she had the space to apply them. With her new income, she was able to put down a payment on her own apartment. The day she signed the documents, she walked out of the notary office and stopped on the sidewalk for a moment, looking at the building. The afternoon sun hit her face. People passed around her in a hurry. She stood there just long enough to feel it fully, to place the moment somewhere permanent inside her. Then she continued walking. Ethan was 10 when his robotics team won the state competition in Dallas. Valerie traveled with Lily on the 6 a.m. bus, 4 hours on the road. They arrived just in time. When Ethan walked onto the stage to receive the trophy, he looked for his mother in the audience before anyone else. He found her in the third row, holding Lily, clapping with all her strength. Ethan smiled with that kind of smile children give when they need their mother to witness what they have achieved. Valerie kept clapping until her hands hurt. Lily was 8 when she completed her first full sketchbook. Every page filled from beginning to end without skipping a single one. Valerie placed it in a special drawer along with Ethan's robotics trophy and a photograph of the three of them on the balcony of their new apartment, taken on the day they moved in. Boxes still unpacked behind them, all three smiling anyway. The years passed with the kind of speed life takes on when you are busy building something that only becomes visible when you finally turn around and look at it. 3 years after that October night, the University of Texas contacted Valerie for a new project, a teacher training program that required coordinators with real classroom and leadership experience. Someone had recommended her. She never found out who. She attended the meeting, listened carefully, asked questions no one else asked, went home, thought for 3 days about what saying yes would mean, and then she said yes. The program required 2 afternoons a week, in addition to her work at the school. Some nights, she returned home when Ethan and Lily were already asleep and sat alone in the kitchen with her papers, thinking there was no way everything would fit. But it always did. There was always a way to organize everything so it worked. And Valerie found it because she had no option not to, and because she had learned something important. Not having a choice is not always a tragedy. Sometimes it is direction. One Tuesday afternoon, leaving the university after a late meeting, she heard her name from across the parking lot. She turned slowly. It was Marcus. He looked different, thinner, his hair longer. Something in his face that took Valerie a moment to recognize. The exhaustion of someone carrying something that cannot be set down anywhere. "I did not know you worked here," Marcus said. "I do not work here. I have a project with the university." He nodded and looked at the ground for a moment. "I saw the kids on Saturday. Ethan told me about the robotics competition. State champions." "Yes." Valerie paused. A long pause filled with everything that had not been said for years. Marcus finally spoke again. "What I did has no justification. It did not have one then, and it does not have one now. I just wanted to tell you that." Valerie looked at him, thinking of that October night, of Claire opening the door, of Ethan asking about his father at the kitchen table, of Lily holding her pink blanket. "I know, Marcus," she said, "and I appreciate you saying it." She picked up her keys. "The kids are okay. They are growing, and they are good people. That is what matters." Then she walked to her car and did not look back. That night, after dinner, after helping Ethan with his math homework, after listening to Lily describe in great detail a movie she had watched with her father over the weekend, Valerie stepped out onto the balcony with a cup of coffee. November in Austin carried a soft chill, not true cold, just a quiet signal that the year was ending and something new was coming. Streetlights flickered below. Somewhere nearby, music played softly. Inside the apartment, Ethan and Lily argued about what to watch before bed. The same argument they always had. The one that always ended with Ethan giving in, even if he pretended he did not. Valerie sipped her coffee slowly and thought about the woman who had walked out of that house at 11 at night with 2 children in her hands, not knowing exactly where she was going, but knowing with absolute certainty where she would never return. She thought about everything that woman had not yet known she would be capable of doing. The apartment she would buy, the position she would accept, the applause she would give until her hands hurt, the nights she would spend calculating expenses that would always somehow balance. She had walked out with nothing but her children and her clarity, and it turned out that was exactly enough. Her name was now on university documents, on the academic coordinator plaque at the school, on the deed of the apartment she paid for every month with her own work. Everything was hers. Everything built with her hands, her time, her early mornings, her late nights, her decisions. No one had given it to her. No one could take it away. If this story touched your heart, like this video and share it with a woman who needs to remember today that walking out that door was the first step toward becoming the strongest version of herself. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now and turn on the notification bell.